Hi, I'm Rick Burnley, editor of Kayak Angler Magazine, and I'm here with Chase from Walleye County. Chase, you got some really cool walleye lures that you've been developing. Tell us a little bit about what makes these lures unique. What you got?
Absolutely. Yeah. No, like I said, we've been working on some walleye specific brands, right? We're trying to get, the avid walleye, contributing forward facing sonar, obviously with traditional values as well. So I want to introduce you to the flatbed drifter, which is a jigging style bait, right? So for forward facing sonar, I'll use this a ton, especially when I'm trying to catch one single walleye, especially when we're fishing tournaments and stuff like that, right? So that's that thing. This thing has been an absolute fish catcher for me personally. We got a great variety of colors and stuff like that. But nonetheless, it's a style of bait that I just don't really see too much of. It's kind of like a hybrid leech, kind of acts like, a night crawler, right? So we're trying to mimic the natural baits that the walleye seem to love so much of, and that's what this bait does a great job of.
How would you rig that up?
Yep, so what I would do is I would take my jig heads, right? Pop this out of the bag real quick, get a hook, and then how I do this, simply just kind of like your standard hook, right? You just grab the hook, put it right through the center, and it's really shaky, and then just get it, so we're just like that, right?
Right.
So then what we're trying to do is get this tail to do what leeches do so well, right? Get that beautiful wave, but then also contribute the night crawler aspect. So a huge fish catcher, one of my favorite baits that we've got.
What makes these unique? Is there something you've done with the plastic or the design that makes them different than other?
Yeah, I'd say
lures?
specifically the design, because you're kind of contributing the body of the night crawler, right? Round, kind of that type of thing. But then at the end of it, recreating this leech aspect where you're trying to get that that wiggle effect. So basically, like when I'm fishing this lure is going like this, and it's just a very tantalizing effect that does draw a ton of bites from big finicky walleyes too.
Sure.
So then also, I got to think about the minnows too, right? So we got this is the ditch minnow. It's a 3 1/4 inch size bait. But again, you can do the same thing. I would be rigging it in this aspect again. I can jig it off the bottom, rip it really hard, trigger some reaction style baits, right? But then also with forward facing sonar, walleyes aren't always on the bottom.
Right.
We'll find them suspending, 35 feet up or 35 feet of water. Sometimes they're only 5 feet down below the water. So ultimately, contributing with the forages that they're feeding on is a huge thing, but this thing does a great job in triggering bites.
You can work it on the bottom, you can work it up
it's a reaction style bait,
Right.
so that this thing is definitely a key piece, especially say they don't want to touch any of these ones for whatever reason, right? So it just gives you a bunch of versatility.
Perfect.
But then also, there's a time and place for what we call as the fender shad. This is a 3 1/4 inch bait. Again, with the walleye world, you can do a lot of just this same thing with different baits, right? You're going to use your jig head, thread it on through, and then either jig it off the bottom, stroll it slow, make it hit the rocks and make the erratic motion, or just simply, again, like I said, with forward-facing sonar and where we're going in the world, this is going to be a great option for pinpointing and putting it right above their head, so you can get that. Because if you missed it over here, sometimes they won't bite. So combining the forward-facing sonar and these baits specifically, you're going to see a lot of success.
Yeah.
But then, like I said, we got the old school fishermen, right? Crankbaits.
Right.
Lindy rigging, all that type of stuff, with where the walleye world's going. These are kind of still being, they're forgotten about it a little bit, with the direction that walleye's going. So ultimately, when it gets to that prime time hours, early morning, late afternoons, the walleyes are going to slide up into the shallows. And what you can do is just troll crankbaits, right? So we got the piston there, and that's actually kind of like a jerk bait, also a trolling bait.
Okay.
So there's a great weight transfer system in this bait here, so that sets it apart for just simply being able to cast it and put it right where you want it, right?
Ball bearings just slide.
Exactly.
Cool.
So, but then the color specifically, we spent a lot of time determining, the styles that we like as walleye fishermen and trying to gather all of them into one line of bait. So,
Right.
Yeah.
You said where the walleye world is going. Where's the walleye world going? I mean, what's the trend?
Yeah, because like back in the day, there was a lot of drifting, right? You kind of had to drift, live bait rigs, so on and so forth. And ultimately, when you're doing that type of stuff, you're just hoping for the bite, right? You know they're there and all that type of stuff, but where forward-facing sonar's coming into play, we kind of just cruise along and go back and forth until we find that one that we want, right? So when we find the one that we want, that's where I'm going to reach for this guy.
You can target it with more specific precision baits.
Yeah, exactly. 40 feet that way.
Yeah.
and then just jig it way back. So
Very cool.
But again, like where it's going, you're definitely going to want to keep track of that flatbed or the flatbed drifter, because this is one that has been proving itself in that aspect. So
Excellent.
yeah.
Well, cool, man. I really appreciate you taking us through this, and it's great to hear about walleye fishing from somebody who's an expert at it like you, not just a weekend warrior, because these are the kind of tips that's going to take that weekend warrior to the next level. So I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, you too.
Yep, good luck out there.